Hey, welcome back to the podcast that explores conversations every couple should be having and how we can do better as partners. I'm your co-host, Jonathan, otherwise known as Do Better Jonathan.
Hey, I'm Justin, a therapist that spent over a decade helping couples.
Society is continually in a state of slow change. There is one change that I've noticed and I personally think is quite beautiful. Dads are choosing to step up more. According to Pew Research, the percentage of dads who work in the home to care for the family have almost doubled since 1989. Now, about 1 in 5 of the individuals who work within the home are males. In this podcast, these are the type of trends that we love and we want to support. I think these stories also have the potential to change the world and change how we see these men who are choosing to step up into family life. Today, we are speaking to Nick. Nick has such a beautiful story being called to serve his faith to then being called to show up and serve his growing family. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. To start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story.
Jonathan, Justin, thank you so much, you guys, for having me on. It's really a pleasure to be here. A little bit about myself. I grew up in the Midwest in Omaha, Nebraska, and eventually I felt a call after serving for 3 years in ministry under the pastor I grew up next to in my neighborhood to go to seminary and receive my Master of Divinity. So I went to Kansas City and worked for this mega church for a decade, and I loved it. It was busy and it used all my skills. But I also wanted to start a family, and I fell in love. And out of that love, me and my wife had a son, and our son is, at the recording of this podcast, 9 months old. And so we're just loving that. After a decade of working at that megachurch, I just found myself wanting to prioritize my family. And so I decided to resign from my position. And for 9 months, I have been a stay-at-home dad trying to figure out what those rhythms look like. And I think we're going to go through a journey here together, but it's been fun. It's been tough, and I'm still doing it. So.
Well, I mean, I already feel myself like I have like so many questions already, but I just need to be patient. To start off with, I mean, what I'm so impressed by you around is that like you went through a ton of like major life changes within a really short just period of time overall. And so you moved to a brand new place. You obviously added another person to your family. And then, I mean, you've changed, focusing on ministry and then now focusing on your family, like career, where you live, and also, I mean, being able to add more stress to your family. I mean, that's huge. But I mean, honestly, it'd be really easy to not feel grounded or really like settled in like these really big transitions. But what was like this time of your life? What was this like for you? How was that transition? All of these.
Yeah. If I was, I don't know, if I was smart, I would just choose one transition, but life has a way of just choosing things for you. And, it all just seemed the right season. I'll just kind of take you through some stages of my transition. So in my mind, there's kind of 5 stages of that transition. The first one being an uncomfortable new rhythm. Like, it's kind of like having sex for the first time, or like you don't really have any idea what you're doing and you can't really remember what you said to get there. And, but here you are and
Still
you're
there.
doing it. And
I'm
it's
still
happening.
there.
Yeah. So I think in some sense, like we all have that growth curve, but like, in this sense, since I was like 14, I had never been unemployed before. And so this was kind of a shock to my system in a big way. So that was kind of the first stage of my transition. And then the next one was the ego hit. And you guys might have experienced this, but it's like, I no longer felt needed for the work that I could do and the problems that I could solve for others. And so all of a sudden my ego took this huge hit. And, being a competitive soccer player and coach, like my whole life, like I knew I had an ego. I love to argue with people. I love to, I love to challenge people. I like to stir things up. I also like to lead at a high capacity and high level, but, I guess I didn't realize how much my ego could be deflated. And that was a big stage of my transition, number 2. And then, the third one was freedom and joy, which I think was a a really wonderful stage that I kind of wish I could relive. And I'm sure I will at one point, but I've been in this leadership program for the last year, and we went to England to trace the steps of the journey of Methodism before I came to the US. And that was super fun. And then like 3 days later, after I got back from England, we left for the Republic of Georgia to introduce my son to my wife's family, because that's where she's from. And then on the way back from the Republic of Georgia, we went to Munich to celebrate Oktoberfest, and we had him dressed up in lederhosen, and we had him dancing on the tables, and I had him holding his first beer, you know. And then we had baby's first holidays with Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all the things. There was so much freedom and so much joy. I wasn't going to bed constantly thinking about the 100 different people who I needed to care for in that week who were struggling with really serious things or like celebrating really wonderful things. But either way, I could just never get my mind off of all these other people. And there was so much freedom and joy in that. And also just doing all those wonderful things with my family for the first times. And then, so that was the third stage. The fourth stage was like a grief, all 5 stages: denial, anger, depression, acceptance, bargaining. I think I miss bargaining as one of those. And I heard this the other day through a blog post, and there's this term called, I think I'm pronouncing it right, anhedonia. Have you heard this? Anyway, it's this inability to feel pleasure in the activities that you usually considered pleasurable for you, because your nervous system, after such a dominant stimulus has been removed from your life, like important work, it's no longer present. And for many men, this is work. And to some men, I can imagine it could even feel like emotional suicide. Like, why would you step away from this thing where you have all your meaning and purpose in? And so that was just kind of, that fourth stage for me was grief right after the freedom and joy, which was kind of ripping me from one universe into the next. That was a really tough season. And remember, this has only happened all in 9 months. And yeah. And then the fifth stage of the transition is now. The fifth stage is current. And that's a spatial awareness. That blog post that I mentioned, I think the blog is called clues.life. Anyway, it's written by Andy Johns, and he has this blog from last year called What Happens When You Leave Your Career and Identity Behind. And so essentially he tackles like what it means to live in like the valley between two mountains. Have you read the book The Second Mountain by David Brooks? So the idea is like the first mountain is you're a go-getter, you're working to survive, you're working to succeed, you're building all this street cred. So people, are excited to support you, excited to help you succeed, pouring into you, and you're working 70-hour weeks to make ends meet and make a name for yourself. This is usually like your 20s and early 30s. And then there's the second mountain on the other side, which is like, in order to get there, you have to go through the valley. And that's kind of where I'm at is the valley is open space. There's nothing like to climb. There's nothing to like spelunk over. There's nothing, it doesn't seem like there's much of a plan. You just know that there's another mountain ahead and you're going to have to drag yourself there. And that next mountain is like basking in the fact that your identity and your gifts don't cease to belong to you just because the work you were doing that paid you ceased. And so that's that second mountain where you just kind of become you in a way that is not attached to work, especially for, I think, men. So that's the stage I'm in right now, that valley.
I feel like there's so much to unpack here. I know Justin, he's like his therapist, like tingling senses are probably just going wild. I can see Justin over here, like he's ready for all these questions.
Got notes.
I think it's such an interesting point, though, that, I think if we looking at traditional roles, we identify men with their career so often, and like that's just a and you talk about that a lot in what you're talking about in all your stages. It's letting go of your identity by letting go of your career and being a stay-at-home parent. I think that's just it's something I thought about before, but not really in that regard. That you know that would be really tough to put a pause on it. And I guess I haven't respected that aspect of it before. I think that's a really point to bring up that we really do put our identity into our work, especially as men. That's kind of how, we are raised and what we're expected. And to just let go of that, even if you know what you're doing is important and, family is what's important to you, you still have that kind of lost feeling. And I love how you put that with the 5 different phases and how you've kind of grown through that.
Yeah, and I will say too, Jonathan, I don't think it's a bad thing to put to identify with your career, because I think a career ultimately helps you live out the gifts that you naturally have, the talents that you have. And ultimately, we kind of talk to a lot of young people, and we even do this with kids. And Justin, you can probably relate to this. It's what do you want to be when you grow up? And it says if the career defines your entire life. I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know if this is fact or fiction, but John Lennon is known as saying what do you want to be when you grow up, from a teacher? And he says happy. And she says, you don't understand the assignment. And he says, you don't understand life. have you heard this?
I haven't.
Anyway,
no,
I just, okay. Yeah. And I just think there's so much truth in that. I think we wrap so much of our identity in the career, that it can be a healthy thing. So I don't think we need to think about it as an unhealthy thing. I just think we need to remember that it's not the only thing. And it's in my context, it's okay to step away, find yourself, remember to what you've been called, and to pour into your family, which is a really rich thing. And I think about whatever I'm doing with my son at home in raising him and developing him and seeing all these milestones. And that's going to be part of my legacy. It's not just me being able to bring bacon back to the apartment, but it's all, or put bread on the table, however you want to say it. But it's also, if he feels safe around me as his father, that's really important. And I think sometimes when I'm stressed out at work, I don't know about you guys, but I have a tendency to have a shorter fuse when I'm stressed. So, being a little less stressed, has helped me kind of ease into parenthood.
One thing that I was thinking of, and I was really interested about stage number 4, where you talked about grief and the struggle with grief. And usually, when grief is discussed, it's associated with the death of something. And that's maybe what I was kind of curious about. What do you think was maybe not dying, but shifting or transforming or changing? What would you say?
I would say probably it's the grief of a trajectory. In a trajectory, I mean an expectation I built around myself. I don't know what kind of structures you guys have around your lives, but I have the most incredible family. I mean, my parents who raised me, my grandparents who helped me raise me, friends, my wife, of course, but even her family, both American and other, and the ways that they've poured into me. And I'm also thinking about my mentors, which is huge. I'm huge on mentorship. That's my whole thing. And I think a lot about the expectations of letting them down in some way. I had this trajectory and everyone's so excited that I was this mega church pastor, and then just kind of stepping away. And it's been so interesting and helped me get over that grief is I have not received from a single person a sense of disappointment, a sense of we lament that we ever invested in you. It's been New York, that sounds amazing. And you're supporting your wife. and you guys like share last names, and you like are raising a son, and you're doing the majority of the work at home and otherwise. And it's just like, I think that's so cool. I mean, that has just been so many people's responses. And I think my parents asked me this. They just arrived in New York yesterday, and they said, "So how have people been feeling about like what you're navigating?" And I said, anyone who maybe has a negative thought to share about it, or a judgment, just hasn't shared it. And I also feel super blessed by that too. It's not just like people sharing support. It's also just the not sharing of anything. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. Right. So yeah, I think the grief was a loss of trajectory and expectation.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask how your friends and family felt about that transition and you stepping away. So I think that's amazing that you've been so supportive and everyone's been so positive about it. Do you feel like you see any stereotypes about like stay-at-home dads? Or I know last week we talked to two stay-at-home moms, and they felt like they see a lot of stereotypes about stay-at-home moms and parents specifically. And they're like, oh yes, there's a lot of things we want to address. Like, we want to talk about how A, B, and C is wrong, and this is how I feel about it. So, like, is there anything like that you see, like, or you feel stereotyped as a stay-at-home dad that you would like to address?
Maybe I'm just completely off base here, but I think the idea of a stay-at-home dad is so new that like the stereotypes are not solidified yet. So I guess I could like really help creating a stereotype. So like if you give me ideas of what I should create, then I can like live into it and post about it, and then we can create an entire archetype. No,
Go for it.
I don't know. I'm just joking. I'm being facetious. I think people are surprised. Surprise. Everyone leads with surprise, but I don't see that as like judgmentalism. Um, it's no surprise to me that people are surprised. Um, I think people are like primarily surprised because they know I'm aspirational and I execute at a high level of success. And the biggest struggle for me has been like the conversation between my own ears. Like when I allow doubt in my abilities to creep in, that's when I see a lack of confidence, which is really unsettling to me because as someone who's, like I said, played sports at a high level for my whole life, or, what have you, always done things to try to the best of my abilities. When doubt creeps in, then I start to lose confidence. And I've just never been someone who lacks confidence. And so when I feel that, it feels so just like unsettling in my soul, like to the very cores of my being. And I think that's how I felt during the grief stage, was having a lack of confidence. And man, that was so unsettling for, I don't know, it probably lasted for like 3 months. But in terms of like people having stereotypes about stay-at-home dads, I know that there are some like Instagram dads who are doing this the stay-at-home thing. They're trying to make a whole shtick and caricature out of it, and I think that's great. I think it's hilarious, but I guess I don't have one. I'm so new to it, so.
No, and quick side note. So I think when we were expecting our first kiddo, and this was in 2021, I ended up watching, there was a little documentary on Apple TV called like Fatherhood or Dads or something of that nature. And it was actually put together by Bryce Dallas Howard, who is the daughter of Ron Howard. I don't know if you remember him, Opie. And this was again, and just really kind of like preparation for fatherhood for me. And I was in puddles. Like I was absolutely in puddles, like really like seeing the beauty that is like fatherhood and what it could be. And one piece, and I'm going back to kind of your stages, what you discuss like these moments of joy and beauty overall. And where do you find like that trajectory in your marriage and your relationship with your wife? Like, what does that look like adding another person? And
So we got back from Georgia and Germany in like beginning of October. And my wife had been like, she's always on the hunt for opportunity, to grow her in her career and her skills. This woman is a dog. I mean, she's just like, she just go get her. She knows what she's doing. She's the person you want on your team. Everybody would want this woman on her team. She's incredible. I mean, there's a reason I married her, Um, but, that kind of grind, looking for something else, can also kind of wear you out a little bit. And it kind of started to wear both of us out. But then, lo and behold, this big firm in New York City wanted her. And so a couple weeks after we get back, she has that interview conversations, and they fly her out and they're like, "You're our gal and we want your team, and how quickly can you start?" And all of a sudden, our first holidays with our baby are turning into pack up all your stuff and move out of the house. And so we're just no longer syncing, and I was probably in the middle of my grief stage, in the terms of when the holidays were happening, as it's just as soon as the freedom and joy phase, we came back from Germany, she got the call in the interview, and I immediately entered into grief phase. And so during this time, we're doing all this packing up, and we're selling everything. We're saying goodbye to all our friends, or and so we agreed that we needed some kind of therapist to help us along in this path. And neither one of us had ever done therapy before. So it was our first experience, not only as individuals, but as a couple. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little proud. So I think this is a man thing. Men don't want to go to the doctor. Men are a little proud to, admit that they need help. But I just kind of wanted to go my whole life without seeing a therapist. No, no harm, no foul. But, that didn't happen. And I wanted our marriage to stay together, and I wanted to be strong. And that's when the dip really happened, when we started seeing the therapist and unpacking some stuff. And I was, dang, we can no longer pretend like things are just okie dokie, We had to address things that were now in the open, because we wanted them to get better. So, and then once we moved here, I don't know who's going to catch wind of this, but this is it's been a super challenging 2 months. My wife was working 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., give the baby a bath, put him down, and go back to work from 8 p.m. until 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. That was weeks on end. So I felt like we needed a therapist all over again. But I made a conscious decision after hearing another really wonderful lead pastor say this. I choose every day to be the chief service officer of my household, the CSO. And that means even when I need maybe therapeutical help, or, things are not going right for me, or I'm being treated what I think is unfairly, I'm still the chief service officer of my household. That doesn't change just because of the circumstance. So I just choose every day to look in her eyes and encourage her. And, even when she was ready to give up, man, I think I made the wrong choice. I don't even know what we're doing here. And I'm in my heart, I'm going, and I had this conversation with her last week. I said, in my heart, I'm thinking, we sold everything to be here. We uprooted everything to be here. And we left all our friends. And I said, you're not giving me any sort of confidence here, and I'm not really asking much of you. I'm just over here serving you and raising our son. And I need you to get out there and put bread and bacon on the table, and to be happy doing it, you know? And that was a good conversation, but we have like just freshly emerged from that over the last week.
Well, you said you want to go your whole life without speaking to a therapist, and I
failed.
Sorry, what? I failed. Yeah,
I failed.
Well,
I failed.
I'm glad you failed. Honestly,
Yeah, me too.
And
Me too.
I think from my perspective, it is weird how us men, especially, like, we think that therapy is failing, and yet we've talked about this in previous episodes where therapy should be like your car. It's a maintenance thing. You don't go when things are broken. You should be going before you get to the breaking point to maintain that relationship and to work out those things. And when we started going, it was so eye-opening for me, and it grew our relationship so much. And I think our relationship is tenfold, just is so much better because we had that experience. And so I know it's still kind of a fresh experience. You have a lot going on. You feel like you're still kind of in that dip, getting out of that dip. But as someone who is a pretty removed from going through a dip and stressful situations and therapy and everything, I think you'll find that was such a good decision, and hopefully it provides the same amount of growth for you guys. It sounds like you are super supportive of your wife. How you talk about her is I loved how you talk about her, just thinking that she's a bulldog and go get her and everything. But I was wondering, so like you started off the episode talking so much about how your identity is kind of tied to your career and being competitive, aspirational, and you really struggled with not working and being tied to your career. Yet your wife sounds like very much career driven, very much identity is her career, it sounds like. So is that hard for you to know that, like, in a way you kind of put a pause on your career or gave up that, and then she's kind of pursuing that identity still that you kind of see yourself as, but you're not doing it? Is that difficult for you?
No, because I know where her heart and her mind are at. Growing up with the Republic of Georgia, there's just a certain like level of struggle that causes Georgians to think differently about careers and what they mean. It's more like survival. It's about providing for the needs of your family. It's not about like necessarily finding purpose or joy. I mean, my wife is a highfalutin attorney because like that's what her skills are at. First of all, her talent aligns with that field of work, but also it allows her to make good money that allows her to get as far away from survival mentality as possible. And that's just like first and foremost a priority and so important to her. So I don't really feel the tension because I know where her heart is. And we've had the conversation about, when is enough? When is being stretched so far that our family feels like fabric is about to tear apart? Like, when are you willing to step away? And she's always like encouraging me. You and our son are the most important thing to me, and so like, I'm going to choose you guys. And she has demonstrated to me how she's chosen us over and over again. And, to be honest, like when I was working at the mega church, I couldn't say the same. I mean, we've been married for 6 years now, and the amount of times I put her on the back burner and decided to say yes to one more thing and keep saying no to her and our family, it just doesn't even compete. I mean, I was pretty selfish. And so when I think about being the chief service officer of family, I think about, supporting her is part of like my identity in, I'm going to support the horse that's going to bring all the money in. You know what I mean? like I'm going to make sure that like their mane is all combed and nice. I'm going to make sure that the horseshoes on the bottom of their hooves are like nicely pressed and those are cut properly. Like, I want to make sure they have extra carrots. Like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to make sure that they're bringing home the ring of flowers and the money. I'm betting on that horse all day long. And my wife is, I need to stop comparing her to a horse, but you know what I mean? So she's winning the Kentucky Derby. That's all I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Well, and one part of what you just said, which I really relate to, and I think that it's maybe like a really good thing for me to be able to reflect on and to be able to chew on, is like, when is it, like, for me, when I say yes, when does it become selfish, right? Because I know that, and probably, I mean, you and I are in similar positions where, like, what we say yes to is also giving, right? What we say yes to is like being able to serve others, and I knew that. I think that, you were coaching refugees in Kansas City, if that's correct. And so I'm assuming that's one piece of it. And so where I have a difficult time, and like, this is again, just me being completely open about like my struggles, is like, when is it selfish? And I guess like, it's just such a difficult balance, like between like choosing the relationship and pouring into the relationship, pouring into others, or what? I mean, tell me, I guess, kind of about like that epiphany and how you've gotten to where you are now, because I mean, what you said, it was really beautiful, but I guess that's what I'm struggling with and I'm not sure about.
I think I wanted to get to a place from where I was selfish to being self-full. And what I mean by that is, I picked up long COVID, and I had long COVID for 6 months. And then after I got over long COVID, I picked up mono for the next 6 months, and I had walking mono. No matter how much I slept, rested, didn't work out, ate well, I mean, I was doing everything I possibly could, and I just like, I could not. And I hid it from everybody except for my wife as much as I possibly could. And, I realized at that time that my selfishness wasn't just causing friction for my wife and feeling supported and feeling like she had social time with her husband, relational, romantic time with her husband. It was also my health. I was being so selfish, it was actually affecting my own health. And I think that was the wake up call for me, that something had to change. And it didn't necessarily have to be resigning, but I couldn't just like get more sleep or something. Like, it had to be a radical change, and that's why I say you have to be able to say, I have 3 like buckets. Say yes to things that you must do. You say yes to things that you want to do. You say no to things you should do. And the more financially stable you become, I think the easier it is to live in that paradigm. And that was just kind of the turning point for me, as once I started getting sick and I couldn't get over it, I was like, this is not the life I want. And there was a point where I became pretty depressed, and I thought, if this is my life, I don't want it. Like, if I'm not even interested in being around anymore. I got pretty low. And so, again, I hit it, and luckily, the mono just kind of broke on its own. But I don't know. I never really took sick days from work. And I think I had to take like 8 sick days that year.
No, I absolutely love that. I mean, you really kind of tied in, I don't know, so much of almost like your own personal mentality of like how you've lived your life up until that point, right? Like that was like Nick from childhood in competitive sports. You push through it, you suck it up, you whatever kind of that expectation was of just push. And then it sounds like it was finally a moment maybe by a moment, I mean a year, where you like tuned into your body and your body was breaking, right? Like your body was like trying to tell you something, but at least for me, and maybe what I'm hearing from you, it's really easy to be able to kind of ignore our body. It's really easy to ignore what it's telling us in that moment.
Yeah, and it wasn't until I finally went to the doctor. Remember I said earlier, men don't like to go to the doctor. And the doctor said, you've had walking mono for like at least 2 months.
I kind of chuckle because I've been more sick this winter than I have my entire life. I always like tell people at work like I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I don't really get sick. And this winter I have been sick this like for the last 2 months, but it's also been probably the most I've had on my plate for the last forever. Like I just have so much on my plate, and I'm kind of overextended myself in so many areas. That's like you have me kind of just thinking about myself here.
Do you remember when Michelle Obama like was asked the question like, why do you spend so much time, doing the things that you want to do, or some kind of question like that? It seemed very dismissive of her and her role as first lady during the Obama presidency. And she was like, I have to do self-care so that I can pour out of a full cup, essentially is what she said. It's not verbatim, but I think there's so much wisdom in what she said. It's like you really do have to take care of yourself. And I think it's easy to, when you're a healthy person or you're an athlete or like, you just know what it takes to eat well and to work out and, do different things. It's easy when you don't have major transition or you're not asked to take on more responsibility to continue to stay healthy. But it's as soon as like those extra pieces come in, that you start to experience what seems like overload. And what you don't want to do is burn out because maybe you have to leave something you're super passionate about because you just feel completely burnt out, and that's not my story. I didn't resign because I felt burnt out. I resigned because I wanted to prioritize my family.
Speaking of kind of switching back into like your family and burnout though. So this last week we talked to two stay-at-home moms and they talked about it. It kind of felt like they were having burnout and they were exhausted because they never had a day off. And I know they have a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and so they've been doing this for a few years. And I know like relatively, like 9 months is a long time, but at the same time, it's, kind of a short time too. How do you feel?
I also think like the needs of a 9-month-old is so different than the needs of like a 4 and a 5-year-old as well.
Yeah, it is a different experience. I don't mean to like minimize it, like saying like, oh, you've been that long or anything. Like I mean, 9 months is a solid amount of time. But just wondering, like, how do you feel about that, like day in and day out? Does it seem like it's like the same thing every day? Is it like feel like you never get a day off, or how's that change of pace been for you?
Oh man, well, it's been a challenge. I will say it's not just care for the child. It's managing the household while you're caring for the child. And I think that's where I'm guessing, again, I'm not talking to these women that you're talking about, but like, I'm guessing it's the combination of everything. Because I know all these women have so much love and nurture to give, and they would love to continue to pour out. I understand like maybe at a toddler level when they're really challenging you, that it's, a little more challenging and you feel like you just want to pull your hair out and, drink a glass of wine and like just put your feet up and walk away. I totally understand that because I have those days, and I don't have much hair to pull out, but I still feel that way. And I think for me, I told my wife maybe 3 weeks ago, I said, I know I joked around about being stay-at-home dog dad because we had a dog back in Kansas City. And cat, I think I said cat daddy actually, because we had a cat too. And, and I said, but I'm realizing I'm not cut out for this. And it's not that I'm not cut out for cleaning up and taking care of bills and trash and finances and calling to make things straight and make things go and creating the systems. Like I'm good at those things. That's fine. I'm fine with those things. But like, I get bored after a while. Like I'm sitting on my haunches, helping this little boy figure out how to use his core to get his head in the right places and get walking and get crawling right and grab things. And I'm excited about the development. I love helping him develop. But like, I get so bored when he's drinking milk. I'm like, this is an absolute waste of my time. So I mean, honestly, but we just converted. That's not right. Anyway, we just transitioned him to like, grabbing the bottle on either side of the bottle, so like grabbing the handles. And now if I put him in the right position, he's doing it on his own, but he's like still like in my lap, lean back, like doing the thing. And it's really impressive and it's really fun, but I'm still bored, like I want to be on Chat GPT, like finding out how to, leverage, my assets to go further, faster. I want to like figure out how to design podcasts that are going to like reach young people who need mentors in their lives. Like I want
if you
to
find out,
like,
let us know.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I see it as like all the time I'm spending with him doing what I think are boring things, which I know not everyone will agree what is boring and what's not, which is fine. It's whatever. I just feel like I could be doing things that I like, I'm so passionate about and excited about. And, I just like, one of the things my parents taught me growing up was like just how to be bored. And so I just like am able to just kind of live into that boredom and realize that I'm playing the long game here. Like every day that I am serving my son and blessing him and raising him is going to compound into what I hope to be a really wonderful man someday, and it's not all about like someday in the future when he's 35, he's a great man. Finally, it's also like, I just want him to be a happy kid tomorrow, but today affects tomorrow. So.
Nick, you're so real, and what I mean by that is like, it's so seductive to want to be able to glamorize this. It's so seductive to want to be able to show the highlight reel. It's so seductive to say these like few changes have just been easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and you're just so real that I think that it's, really beautiful to be able to see where what you're saying is like, there's beauty and gosh, there are hard times as well. Like it's not one or the other, like, but
that's the point right there. I think it's all beautiful. It's all hard. It's all work, but it's all beauty. And I just think that's actually how the world works. If you want a deeply meaningful relationship, like then you choose, and you say that a lot of people say this in their vows in marriage, is like through thick and thin, till death do us part, in riches and in poverty. It's like you either choose to like continue to serve the other person in a love that's not just like an eros love, which is just like an attractional romantic love, but in like an agape love, which is like you're going to go the extra mile to serve that person, even when they are being combative with you and they no longer look the way that you like originally looked 10 years ago, and all the things. So I mean, it's harder said than done. And I think that's the reason why things just so easily fall apart. I mean, you have to have a certain level of grit to stick things out and to want to make things work. And I think a lot of it comes down to like one, integrity. Like, do you have like high integrity, which I think everyone should
define integrity, if you don't mind.
Ask themselves. Oh man, it's different for everyone. But I think there's a level of sharedness in integrity, which is you are going to do what you say you're going to do. So that could be a bad thing. Like you could have bad integrity in the sense that like, you're like, I'm going to beat you up. And then you do beat me up, and then it's like, okay, you have integrity, you make good on your promise. That's bad integrity. But what I mean is people who choose the fruits of the spirit is how I would talk about it as a pastor, or as a leader. I would talk about it as do the next right thing. You know, if society holds up certain morals, we have certain laws to guide morality. That's why laws exist, right? Then you should just do the next right thing, whatever society deems that as, you know. And so I think that's high integrity. Even when your situation, your context is not serving you, you still choose to do the right thing.
No, I think that that's, again, incredibly beautiful. And like, I, I guess I'm kind of curious about, going back to this idea of like support for you, for Nick, and maybe what I'm kind of envisioning is, have you ever watched Incredibles 2? My no,
it's not the one
okay,
with.
maybe.
It's not with the one with Frozone. Is it the one where like
Frozone is in?
Is he in it?
I think that he's in it.
Okay.
So my kiddo just put it on this last week. It was incredibly timely, serendipitous. Very grateful for my 4-year-old. And it was the one where, the mom, Miss Stretchy, gosh, I'm going to get yelled at. I'm so sorry. But she, usually, okay, when he's watching a movie, that's where I'm like running around and I'm trying to live up to what John is preaching over here. But this is where the mom, she goes to work. And then the dad, it was interesting. Like he had, he was there to be able to take care of Jack. And, things were just falling apart, but it almost felt like, he almost had like, I don't know if it would be shame. Maybe it was like selflessness, or maybe it was like multiple things of like, I don't want to burden my wife with this. And so in the movie, like he held back more and more and more and put up like a bigger and bigger and bigger wall of like, I'm struggling, I'm hurting. And I guess what I'm thinking of here, like in this, again, transitory time where like your wife is working 20 hours a day and you are working 20 hours a day as well as CSO. Like what did that support? Like, how did you guys maneuver that? And how did we catch each other and love each other? And or what would you suggest if you did it imperfectly? What would you suggest to the next guy?
Well, have a Georgian mother-in-law that'll come and stay with you for 3 weeks when you move. That was super helpful. There's like I told you, we sold everything, so we had to like buy everything when we moved here. I don't know, there's probably 15 pieces of furniture and I had to put them all together. It's just the way they do it now, and it took me 2 hours on average to put each piece together. That's just like 20 hours or more of, assembling furniture. But, I think support is a big one. Not everybody moves away from their support system like we did. And when I mean moves away, I mean like no one is here for us. It's us, deep end, splash. I would say, I'm going to tell you some of like my dad advice, for like dads considering to take on this similar step. My guilty pleasures are non-negotiables. Okay. And my guilty pleasures are dark chocolate and Poppy drinks. All right. Poppy's not sponsoring me yet.
If they want a really good podcast, they know who to call,
Yeah.
I also have a non-negotiable of fitness every day at 6 a.m. with the exception of is it Saturdays? Yeah, I don't do it on Saturdays. And my wife, no matter how tired or busy, which means she might have got 3 hours of sleep the night before, she gets up, and when the baby gets up, and then she cares for him until 7:30. So I have an hour and a half to myself to work out, to get my mind right, to get my body right, to shower, brush my teeth, and that is huge. I think another one's like, be ready to accept realities you never imagined. For example, my wife recently told me that my son would forever now receive her leftovers and unfinished food and I was devastated. Yeah, except the realities you can't imagine. You've gotta have things to look forward to. Like, I love teaching my son new skills. I already kind of mentioned this, and seeing him develop in real time. And like in the moment, he is one toe away from walking on his own, and so maybe it'll happen in the next 24 hours. I don't know, but it's exciting. I've also loved like getting back into cooking and meal prep, and of course it's blessing my family, but at the same time, like, I almost went to culinary school after high school instead of university, and man, I have loved doing that. It's really fun. So I've been using AI to help me like create meal plans and stuff like that, and I just execute. Super fun. Another one is like,
And has
yeah,
that been helpful? Has that, I mean,
yeah, oh,
and so
yeah,
it sounds like, I mean, you're kind of like noticing, I'm hearing you like hit on different aspects of self-care, and I'm sorry that I'm interrupting you just a little bit,
yeah, yeah,
where you've noted like treats have been really helpful for self-care, being able to exercise, like the physical aspect of self-care. And it, gosh, all of these are just kind of like different aspects of you really like filling yourself up, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And even the one I'm gonna say, enjoy the little things, like like what? Well, like when my wife is at work, uh, my son and I like to chew with our mouths open. Yeah, that's not allowed when she's home.
Yes.
So yeah, so yeah. I think another one is like, I'm always interested in learning more and being coached and being, you know, how do you say it? Refined, I guess. So like find a new algorithm. There's a bunch of stay at home dad accounts on Instagram. So I like listening to them and seeing what they're up to and creating caricatures, like I had mentioned earlier. And the other thing I would say is, like, I want to make myself a resource here. I don't have it figured out. I think we're all in the process of becoming something, someone. So if anyone who's listening to this wanted to like reach out and chat to me, they could contact me through my website, and it's afterthebellnyc.com. But I'd love to chat and to create a bigger community of support. So
Yeah, I love that. And we'll make sure to link that website down below in our description. And so look in the show notes if you want to connect with Nick.
Well, then one thing that you mentioned, which I think like really kind of like parallels with this, and it was actually going to be one of my questions. You discussed, really just your passion for mentorship. And, it sounds like you've been a mentor to others. You've poured into others throughout your life, as well as people have poured into you. Um, One thing that I've never really thought of before is, mentorship in parenthood. And what does that look like? And it even like has me kind of questioning, I don't know, like how, yes, I can be able to say that, like, I've learned about parenting from my own parents, right? I've learned about parenting from them as well. But even like leaning on to others through parenthood, has that been something that like you've been able to kind of connect and that you've been able to put together? And what has that looked like?
yeah, I think, mentorship for a 9-month old, like, it's something I've never really ventured into. So I'm building that plane as I'm flying it. But I think a lot of it right now is like, and I did youth ministry for 15 years in addition to pastoral care and operations strategies and outreach, running outreach centers and different things like that. But I have loved the student ministry for really the sole purpose of helping young people become the people that they always wanted to be. And when I think about that for my son, I think he doesn't know who he wants to be. He just wants to smile and know that he can trust his dad to be safe and to be loved and to be fed, And so I guess what mentoring right now means is providing for his basic needs. And that seems so shallow and like, not really meaningful. But if you think about it, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't have the basics, you just can't scale on top of it. And so I guess that's just the season I'm in. And in the next season, whenever that comes, um, my mentoring approach to my son will look different. And I do think of it as mentoring. I think every moment you have to influence a young person's life is an opportunity to mentor them. And I think the world needs mentoring now more than ever. And that's, I mentioned my website. I have a couple former students who live in New York that I recently been connecting with. And they're a little stuck. They're trying to find their way. And I just had this like epiphany last week. We need to create like a mentoring guide where young people can reach out and they can see and have a startup conversation to see if like long-term mentorship is the right fit for them, especially me. But also I'm trying to create some conversations, some talks, maybe a podcast, we'll see. But definitely it lives as a website right now. So maybe you guys can give me some tips on that. But yeah, those are things that I'm really passionate about, and not everybody is even passionate about it, but I think it would behoove everyone to recognize that young people are highly influential, and you should want to be a really positive influence in their lives.
I think even without you knowing it, you've really shown a light on what I think is important in life, and really what, you're talking about the hierarchy of needs, and ultimately you're just talking about your son, you're talking about your 9-month-old. You're saying as long as he's fed, he's happy, that's what's important. But if we took it all the way back in the beginning, you said you struggled and you had grief because your identity was with your career and you lost that and you struggled with that. But really, you knew that your family was most important, that taking care of him was what was actually important. And if it's taken you a while to kind of lose the external expectations of yourself, and I know you said that it's like internally what you were thinking of what you want to be and everything, but like still, I think that a lot of that was fed from how you were raised in society, telling you that it's like our society is go getter. Like, how can you be the most productive? You're talking. I love your honesty. Like, you're with your child and you're like, this is boring. I'm thinking about how I can go research this, how I can be more efficient, how I can go be productive in X, Y, and Z. And I think that's a trap that a lot of us fall in. We feel guilty. Anytime we have downtime, we feel like we're doing something wrong. We feel guilty. But at the end of the day, what's important is that we slow down, we spend time with family, we're happy, we're fed, we're meeting the needs of our family, and we're striving to do better every day. That's what's important, not necessarily all these other things. And so I think that's kind of what I've gotten from this, is even if maybe that's not exactly what you were talking about or what you meant to talk about, but that's kind of what I got from it. It's just like, I know I'm horrible at just having or appreciating my time with my family necessarily. Like, it's boring sometimes, or having downtime and thinking, how can I be more efficient? How can I be more productive right now? And just slowing down, being happy, and realizing our needs are met. And I also love what you talk about mentorship too. I think it is huge in today's world, especially. I mean, I keep mentioning last week, but last week we were talking about how social media, there's so much toxicity on it, of like, in that context, we're talking about like stay-at-home moms versus working moms, and how there's a lot of like combat between the two. But I think in general, just like, there's so much polarization in today's world. And so anytime we can build community, anytime we can talk about mentorship, I think that's a beautiful, great thing. And so I think that's awesome. I totally encourage you to, if you have that free time and you're striving to do something a little bit more, I think and you have that pastor experience, especially, I think that's awesome. Like, do the content. As someone who, I'm obviously a content creator, I've made my page and it's done pretty well in the last year. And I had zero expectations of it. When I first started, I actually have this in a diary entry. Like, it's like day 7 of me posting. I did like a journal for like 2 weeks. I stopped doing it, but it was like day 7 of me posting. I literally wrote, I don't know why I'm making these videos because no one's going to watch them, but I'm just going to do it for myself. And like I was,
I love that.
yeah, I literally wrote that on my like diary. It was, or journal. It was like, I don't expect anyone to watch this, but I have fun doing it, and it's going to make me a better person. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And then,
You should do it for yourself. I
yeah,
love that.
exactly. And it just took off. And so I think I always encourage people just like, just do it. Even if it doesn't take off, even if it doesn't, explode. Like, I think it was really insightful for me. And even if it's helping 5 people, 10 people, you're still helping people. And so I think that's awesome. I totally encourage you to do the podcast, website, content creation, whatever you're looking to explore. I think, yeah, you have a lot of good messaging and can give a lot of good mentorship to the world there. So that was my takeaway, and I really appreciate you joining us today. Justin, do you have?
Yeah, my big takeaways that I really liked. I mean, you number one, I mean, you started off, and I don't know if you saw, my jaw was just kind of on the floor because I loved that overall breakdown and like the overall like evolution of what like this transitory period has been like in so many different pieces. But like how I've been most impacted, and honestly, what I've kind of been asking myself like these past 5 or 10 minutes. I loved again your discussion on just kind of like overall mentorship. And, there was part of me that was asking, well, like, who is my mentor now? And what would I say? Like, who is it exactly? And for those who are active in faith, I mean, I always like to reflect on kind of what is like the 5-finger prayer. And so in the 5-finger prayer, like you want to be able to pray for, number one, those closest to you, that's your thumb. And then you want to be able to pray for like those who teach you, those who are in like the highest position, those who are weak, and those who are struggling, because our little ring finger is weak and struggling, and then yourself. And so the pinky is to remind you that like you are the smallest and you are the most distant, and to be able to put others before yourself. But I always struggle with the pointer finger. I always struggle with like, all right, like who am I learning from? Who is teaching me? And like you just really kind of brought it up to the forefront again, where it's, I don't know, me as a parent, like who is mentoring me as a father. And I think, or at least like, when John and I, when we started this, I think that this is like one aspect or one place of where at least I feel as though I'm getting mentorship. I'm learning empathy. I'm learning grace. I'm learning and being shaped by everybody's stories and insights that they've really given me. And so I that's where I'm, if no one listens to this, then I am still just like so grateful and like so changed by you and your perspective. And so my continual reflection on mentorship, I think that is one of the pieces that I got from you. And then, I really liked where you were discussing, like, this is the whole shebang, Justin, the joy and the hard and the intertwining of it all. And like, that is, this is the agape love that I want to be able to live through. This is the agape love. Like it's easy to be able to have lust. It's easy to be able to have desire, but like this love, sorry to be cliche, is such a verb. It is that action, right? And to show up in that agape way, this was a really good reminder for me of what agape looks like. And I think that, like, frankly, my friend, you're really kind of about embodying agape with how you're showing up for your wife, how you're showing up for that little kiddo every single day, and how you want to show up for the world, and what your mentorship, what it has done, I think, and how it has already touched so many people. But, the willingness to continue to be able to love and to be able to pour into others. I think, I don't know, that those were kind of my big ones that I really got from this.
I appreciate that. And I think what I kind of hearing from you guys too is like, you're both saying, even if this falls on deaf ears, even if it's an audience of one, even if it's only for me, I would still do it because I'm receiving mentorship, because it's a journal for me, because I'm having the opportunity to use my talents and be the creative content creator that I feel led to be in this season. I think that's a really beautiful takeaway from you guys is like, you're doing it for the right reasons, you know. So my brother is an ordained pastor like me as well. And my older brother, and we were talking the other day, and he said, do you know like what the crux of your struggle is? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He was like, some people struggle with fame, some people struggle with money, some people struggle with pleasure, some people struggle, with different things like that. And I said, yeah, I don't know. Can you describe all the things to me? And we kind of talked about it for a little bit. And he was like, I think yours is fame. I said, he said, I think you need to be more aware of doing things for the right reasons. Not be because you're going to get a bunch of followers, not be because you're going to change a billion lives, but because you feel called to do it. It sits right in your soul. It's right in the season. And by you putting it out in the ether, it will affect not only you, but it'll also ripple out into your family in ways that you don't even recognize. The way you carry yourself after you do something that you are passionate about, and the way you executed something. So I applaud you guys too, and what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I love when our guests have a takeaway. It's not often, but I kind of like it. But yeah, we always, like Justin and I always say that, coming on the podcast, many people are probably not going to hear it, but we really enjoy these conversations. We get so much out of this time, and we hope that others do too. But if they don't, at the end of the day, we find it really insightful for us, and we hope that it was also insightful for you. We also have a new challenge that we want to start. So this is the first time we're doing this, and we're going to do this every episode from now on. And so, Justin, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so John and I were talking, and actually, in all honesty, we actually got this from one of the listeners who had listened to this, and they had a really great idea of, I would love to be able to have like a way for the guest or in some different way that like we can be able to be challenged in some way that we can be able to be better as a parent, how we could be better as a spouse, or how we could be better as a brother, a sister, a friend. And so, I mean, this is what like this podcast is about, is to be, that version of us that we hope to be. But I think that it's through like these tiny little challenges or ideas. I think that, I don't know, they always say that like we never grow when we're comfortable. We only grow when we're uncomfortable. And so what are like these little micro moments where we can become uncomfortable to be like that better version of ourselves? And so I did prepare Nick for this rather than throwing you horrifically under the bus. But I wanted to be able to see, like, with everything that we've kind of talked about and with overall like your insight and your experience that you've had, I don't know, what challenge would you have for us or for the listeners in our relationships?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked. I gave quite a bit of thought to this, and I think what I want to do with this challenge, I'm going to share the challenge at the very end. Sorry, I'm a pastor. I can talk a lot. I want to validate negative experiences for people, and that's what my challenge is going to be to help you do. So a negative experience is like often agreed upon by society as grief and suffering. That's a negative experience. Yet, and we already kind of hit on this, grief and suffering are vital parts of life. And you can't avoid them. They happen to everyone. They lead to deeper, more mature relationships with life. And what's interesting is that in my negative experience of my own grief on that, at my transition levels, I was responsible for my own grief. It's not always like that. I chose to resign, and that caused grief. I think I was prepared for that season of grief in the valley between the two mountains, because before I decided to resign, I had helped my parents navigate their retirement and moving away from careers of 40 years in the medical field into who am I now if I don't have that? And they delayed it, and here they are in New York enjoying a retired life with us, which I think is beautiful because it's always been my purpose to help other people locate their purpose. This is why I love mentoring, right? It's a discovery. It's a journey of discovery, which sometimes means reminding people that their purpose can be lived out through a paid job, but it doesn't end when the paid job ends. Their purpose doesn't end when the paid job ends. You take your purpose with you. It is integral, vital to who you are. So this is what I want the challenge to be and to invite everyone to. I want you to write it down. If you don't write it down, you're not really doing the challenge. All right. I want you to make three lists essentially. And the first one is, I already mentioned this, must do. What is your must do list? Second one, what is your want to do list? Third one, what is your should do list? This week, within the next, let's just say 7 days, say yes to a thing you must do and write down what it was. Say yes to a thing you want to do and write it down once you've done it. And say no to a thing you feel you should do and write it down and don't do it. That's my challenge.
I love that. Very, very wonderful to be able to kind of really bring it back to like so much of what you talked about at the beginning and kind of in the middle as well. This was kind of my question. I know that we're kind of at the end. With what we should do, what I'm hearing you say, because I'm a good student. I want to be able to make sure that I'm doing okay. This is like where I feel expectations, right? This is where I feel, I guess, could you tell me maybe a little bit more about like what?
I agree.
So I'll give you an example of each.
I'm feeling anxiety.
Oh no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I'll give the class examples. So, an example of what you must do, right? If you have a meeting with someone lined up who is a stakeholder in your business, your entrepreneurial thing, your what have you, your clientele, like you must be in that meeting with that person. That is just a requirement. You just can't skip it. Okay. That's obvious. Want to do something that you've been looking forward to that fills your cup. That's kind of obvious, right? The should do is my aunt's birthday party is in April and they're inviting us to drive 4 hours to go to the birthday party. And I know we haven't seen them in 3 years, but I don't really want to go. I'm inviting you to say no to going.
Okay.
That's going to be really hard.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. Makes me a little anxious, but I think it's a good opportunity for growth because like you said, Justin literally said, you don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow in the uncomfortable. And I feel anxious saying no to something I should do. But that's how we grow. So I love it. So Justin, we'll talk about that on our roundup and we'll talk about our progress through the challenges when we continue to do this in the future. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe to our channel. If you have any comments, good or bad, we'd love to hear from you. And if you partake in this challenge, please comment below. Let us know. What did you say yes to that you must do? What did you say yes that you want to do? And what did you say no that you should do? If you're like me, it makes you a little anxious, but that's how we grow. Let's do it. So thank you so much again for joining us. Please join us next time. Justin and I are going to be talking to Mal Baska. She runs a channel called Money Talk Mal, and she empowers women to learn more about personal finance. And I'm really excited about this because you may not know this, but I actually work in finance. So for once, I actually know what we'll be talking about, and Justin will be the one that is in the dark. We're really excited for this talk, and we think you'll like it too. See you next time.
Please take care of yourself and the people that you love.